of our attendance, and I know we have at least one more showing up in a few minutes.
All right, excellent. And a hearty welcome back to Commissioner Pitts. Thank you. We have before us an agenda this evening. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
All right, if that being the case, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Burgess, support? Sorry.
Support.
Support by Vyas. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. We also have two sets of minutes this evening, so we'll start with the September 1, 2022 minutes of our regular Planning Commission meeting. Any comments, questions? Nope. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the September 1 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Patelko.
Support.
Support by Burgess. Any other comments? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we also have the November 3rd, 2022, our regular meeting from November. Any comments or questions on those? Great. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Move for approval.
All right. We got a motion by Burgess. Support?
Support.
Support by Pitts. Excellent. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Any communication and announcements?
No communications or announcements have been received.
All right. So we have two public hearings tonight. Just as a reminder, for our public hearings, we'll get a presentation by staff, then we'll give the applicants a chance to present, and then we will take public comments. Public will ask that you come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. We ask that you give your name, your address, and keep your comments limited to those 3 minutes. Please also write your name on the little sheet that's up there at the podium. We'll also be given an opportunity to those that are watching on the live stream that you can call in. The call-in number is on the live stream as well. So if you call in during that period, we will take calls during the public comment period at each one of those public hearings. And if you have comments on non-agenda items, there will be an opportunity later in the agenda, both for those that are here in attendance as well as those watching on the live stream. So all that being said, we will start with PC 2022.11, 3650 Alvan Road, LCC requesting to rezone the west 1.6 acres of their parcel from CC to M1. Mr. Eldridge.
All right, good evening, Commissioners, once again. I'm here to introduce 3650 Alvan Road, owned by 3650 Alvan Road LLC. And as you can see by the image, this large 3.5 acre parcel stretches from the back of the used car sales operation on Sprinkle Road all the way to the trucking facility at the corner of Saidla and Alvan. As some background, back in 2018, this property, along with 36 other properties on Cork Street, Sprinkle, Alvan, Allendale Street, were all actually rezoned from M1 to CC. And the reason for that, really was that this area was looked at as as an area of more industrial growth, but the Sprinkle Road I-94 interchange really developed in a different direction. It really became a commercial hub with all the fast food restaurants and the hotels and the service businesses. So that was the reason to give it a strong relook back in 2018 and transition a lot of this area back to the commercial community zoning. With that being said, Tom Farrell and his company, 3650 Alvan Road LLC, they purchased this property in 2018, not long before that rezoning actually occurred. And it was last year when Mr. Farrell brought up questions about wanting to do something different with the west half of Alvan Road, given its distance from Sprinkle Road and a desire to allow for more flexibility and development of it. So we walked through the 2018 rezoning and the reasons behind that, and talked about the trucking facility at the end of Alvan Road where it transitions to Sadla, and about some of the other warehousing businesses in that area. And, really looked at how it was a portion of this parcel being rezoned would not go against the development of land uses in the area. And with that being said, I'm just going to go through a few brief pictures here. So this is the subject property. This is the west section, the 1.6 acres. And looking to the north, we have a fire protection service business. We have a warehouse business there. Looking east, you can see the refinery, the marijuana retailer that's there. Beyond that is the used car sales business on Sprinkle Road. And on the left of the screen, that brown building is a financial services business. And then to the south is the Red Roof Inn and the Avid Hotel, which is a recent addition. And then looking west, this is the Old Dominion trucking operation that's at that intersection of Sadla and Alvan Road. So just giving an overview of the zoning, here's what the zoning map looks like currently. And you can see how the M1 zone district kind of steps further to the east as you go north towards Miller Road. You can picture at one point in time, all that was shown as CC was all M1 prior to 2018. When we transition over to the existing land use map, which I won't dwell on this, but because it needs some updating. Clearly the trucking facility at the end of Alvan Road shouldn't be labeled as commercial, but it does give you a sense of what's out there. In fact, both Sadla and Millcork, which is further to the west, have more industrial uses than shown on this. But that's what we've got from the existing land use. And then we can focus a little bit on the future land use map here, and you can see, kind of a clean step in the industrial zoning. As you go north, it does gradually step to the east. It doesn't extend all the way to Miller Road like our current zoning does, but you can kind of see where this portion that we're talking about, which is roughly 340 feet of that would be the west 340 feet of this parcel on Alvan that we're talking about. If just that portion was rezoned, how it would, how that would look on this map here. So with that being said, I just have some basic information here on kind of the rationale the staff used when we did our evaluation. I do want to mention, as far as our public outreach, we did send notices to property owners and occupants within 300 feet on November 16th. The applicant, Mr. Farrell, reached out to the neighboring businesses and explained to them what he was applying for, to let them know. In fact, his desire is to build a marijuana grow facility on this site, but I wanted to, make sure that we maintain our focus, looking at this as, a rezoning decision and reviewing it based on, the particular uses that would be allowed in that M1 zone if this rezoning is approved, versus looking at a a particular, just a site development per se. So we're looking at how the requested rezoning, can extend the M1 district but not impact the commercial zoning around it, and then thinking about what other light industrial uses would fit there and not be in conflict. So looking more at our rationale here, so Alvan Road and Sadler Road, as I mentioned, were originally envisioned to be more of an industrial area. I touched on the 2018 rezoning when these properties were transitioned from M1 to the CC zone district. We talked about the compatibility a little bit with the, if this 340-foot portion is rezoned, that it would be directly adjacent to the trucking facility to the west. It wouldn't, any sort of M1 use that were to go in here, this is a light manufacturing use. So even though there are hotels to the south, we obviously have ordinances for screening. We have ordinances that address noise, odor, vibration. So there's protections there even for other commercial uses nearby. And then, the alignment, to allow more opportunity for economic development of this portion of the property, which has very limited visibility from Sprinkle Road. That is, definitely a factor that we looked at. So with that being said, staff is recommending the Planning Commission recommend approval to the City Commission of this rezoning. And I can take questions from the board, from the commissioners right now, or I can bring the applicant up.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this moment? Yes, sir.
I just have one sort of mild technical question. Why would a grow operation be considered an M1, not agriculture or something?
I'm sorry,
Why is this considered manufacturing and not agriculture? Or why wouldn't this fit under normal commercial zoning? Because not really manufacturing has any, like, as you mentioned, there's no problem with vibration.
You're right. And the M1 zone district does allow for expansive agriculture as well. But I guess because most grow facilities are indoor facilities, so they require large buildings, similar to a manufacturing building. To answer that question in more detail here, I'll just look at the use table here. If we look at the agricultural category, it really is focused more heavily on the manufacturing versus the commercial zone districts.
Okay, because there's no concern with, like as you mentioned, the vibration or pollution or any of the other issues with manufacturing wouldn't be an issue here, correct?
Well, what would be allowed under M1 would be light manufacturing.
Sure.
Yes.
It sounds like the rezoning is mostly for the development of the new business that's going in there. Was a special use permit discussed? And if so, why not go that route?
A special use permit wasn't discussed, I think, because the plan is to divide the property. What was provided in the package showed the survey work that was done. So this would be divided off and would be a completely separate development. So we did not go down the road of a special use permit.
Okay.
Other questions for staff at this moment? I apologize that I did not look during my research. Has Millwood done a neighborhood plan?
Millwood is not yet, no.
Not yet, okay, all right. And you answered my other question, so, good. Nothing else? Then we'll welcome the applicant up and hear from the applicant.
And if there is a neighborhood plan, we usually mention that under the strategic alignment section.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Welcome. Do you,
If you just leave that there, it might actually help. I need the light.
okay,
My eyes aren't what they were.
so the images that,
Oh,
those
good.
are on there?
Not that one. Where's the one with the green? Just kidding. I don't know. We can go back to there we go.
Okay, just leave it on that one?
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Pete. Good evening. My name is Pat Lennon. I'm an attorney with the Honigman Law Firm. I think I know a few of you. Good to see Mr. Milliken again, and many of the rest of you. I'm here tonight with Tom Farrell, who's with 3650 Alvin LLC. They're the owner of the property that we're discussing tonight. And as you've heard, they're seeking to rezone a portion of their property from community commercial to M1 light industrial. You can't really see it from here too well, but the whole property consists of about 3.5 acres. The portion of the property to the east, which is the Sprinkle Road side, is already developed as the refinery, which is a marijuana retail type of use. We aren't proposing to change that zoning. That complies with its category, and so that's okay. So if you look at that, we're really only rezoning probably the westerly third of the property, roughly. And really all we're asking to do is push out the existing M1 zoning, that 350 feet or so, into that rectangle above. So it's not a rezoning of all of that. And as you've heard, the applicant, would like the right to establish industrial uses on that portion of the property. You can see that it's really not well suited for commercial. It has no frontage on Sprinkle Road. There's no visibility. There's not real easy access. So it's really best suited to be an industrial property in our view. And we'll talk more about that as we get into our conversation tonight. But as you've also heard, one of the reasons for this application this evening is the notion that this could be a marijuana grow facility, an indoor facility. And that's, it's necessary to expand that M1 district into this parcel in order to do that. So before we get into the standards for you to consider with respect to a rezoning, I think it would be wise to talk about a couple of unique characteristics with respect to this application. Don't necessarily fit directly into the standards, but I think for background would be helpful to you as you consider the questions before you tonight. First, as Mr. Aldrich pointed out, this property was originally zoned M1, and it was only recently rezoned to CC as part of a broader and more general, almost comprehensive rezoning of something like 40 properties, in the area. As some of you may be aware, as that process played out, and I remember this from when it was occurring, and with other clients that had requests, often landowners would reach out to city staff or to city council or likely to the plan commission to ask that their properties not be included in the rezone. They wanted to retain the use that they had. In this case, that request was never made because they didn't own the property at that time, or they didn't know about it. They bought it at or about the same time these things were going on. But we believe that had they asked, it never would have been rezoned in the first place. So that's probably not the same as some of the other properties you consider for rezonings, where the zoning category was established based on a community need or some kind of urgent interest or the interest of a prior landowner. In this case, it's somewhat coincidental that it was rezoned, because had they known about that at the time, they would have asked to have the property withdrawn. Similarly, in communicating with the city staff, they were under the impression that, or not under the impression that this was the plan for the property, that there was an opportunity for an industrial type of use there. And again, if we could go back in time, if they had been aware of a vision for a grow facility on this part of this land, back when the rezoning was occurring, we think they probably would have withdrawn it themselves. So the takeaway here is that this property, the portion not on Sprinkle Road, happens to be Zone CC, but for many reasons, that's a bit of a coincidence. It wasn't established to be CC for any particular purpose, or because, you know, McDonald's or Walgreens or someone like that looks at this as an attractive property. It's really better suited to be industrial. The other unusual factor that I would point out that I think you should consider, because if we're looking at the reality of what this is, let's be as transparent as we can, is if this is going to be a grow facility, isn't this a desirable location and a desirable operator? Consider that if it is a grow facility, it will be in very close proximity to an existing marijuana retail use. This is different than a situation where you're taking a grow facility or other marijuana use and introducing it into a neighborhood where a similar use doesn't exist. In our view, we think it's good development to concentrate these types of uses in places where the neighbors are already familiar with it. It's already part of this neighborhood and community. The second part of that is having a proven operator under these situations is a good thing. It's not one of your criteria, but consider the fact that the marijuana retail facility on the eastern side of this property has been operated for approximately 3 years by the same group of people. They've been and this is a use category that doesn't always have the most reputable business operators. In this case, you have a group that has not had compliance issues. They've established a good track record. They've been good neighbors, and hopefully they've built trust with the city and the community. So we think those are some things to think about in the background. But what about the criteria in the ordinance, the standards? Well, those are set forth in section 8.35, and we know you're familiar with all of those. You also, I'm sure, are aware that they don't all have to be met. I don't even know if you have to meet any of them. There are standards, guidelines, whatever you want to call them. But we would contend that they're all satisfied. The first is that the use be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Well, the future land use plan identifies, maybe I can find that on this computer, although there's a chance I'll just wreck Pete's hard drive, but let me see if I can find the future land use plan here. Not that one, not that one, there we go. So the future land use plan, as you can see, to the immediate west, shows the property to be commercial and abutting the industrial future land use vision. But we would contend that if you really look at this, what we think occurred is that the rear of the property, which is our client's parcel to the east, and the parcel further to the east, which is the car operation, was bundled into this commercial vision when this was put together. It wasn't probably envisioned that this would be split apart and really more appropriately, in our view at least, situated for an industrial use. Again, I think it's important to note that this is not a parcel that is in the area where there's a different future land use classification. It's on the border, and we're only asking to push that border out about 350 feet. We think this factor might weigh differently if that little piece of red was in the middle of that big blue, or a little piece of blue was in the middle of that red and was surrounded on all four sides. That's not the case here. And when you couple that with some of the strategic vision in the future land use plan, one of which is to promote economic vitality, we would contend that allowing this to become industrial furthers that goal because it will contribute supportive infrastructure to growing businesses in this area. And if the rezoning is denied, you will actually undermine that goal because we would contend that this property where it's physically located is not developable or viable as a commercial use. It really only, because it doesn't have frontage, it doesn't have easy access, it doesn't have all the things that commercial.
I'm afraid so. Thank you, though, for the presentation. Well, while you're there, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I would just wrap up by saying we believe all of the standards are satisfied and then some, and that this really is the appropriate location for an industrial use. And if it happens to become a rural facility, which is, in all transparency, our vision, it's the right place for that too.
Okay.
We thank you for your consideration. We'd be glad to answer any questions. My client's here as well. I'm sure he'd be glad to.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No? All right. Well, then with that, we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? This would be your time if you want to.
My name is Tom Farrell. I'm one of the owners. My son is actually buying me out at this point. We started this in 2018.
Wait, why don't you hang on one sec? I'm not sure you're getting. Is everything, you're good? I just want to make sure you're getting, because I'm not sure the mic's on for you. That's all right. We can hear you, but I'm not sure everyone else can. All right.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
Yep.
Sorry about that, sir.
No problem. My name's Tom Farrell, and my son and I started this in 2019. We opened the dispensary. We bought the property in 2018, and we've been in good standing with the city, have pretty good relationship. It's a locally owned family operation. He's buying me out. He's 33 years old. I'm retired from my old job, but I helped him get started. And frankly, he's done a very good job. The Economic Development Committee, they've looked to us as one of the better licensees, donating, helping out the north side, hiring Kalamazoo employees. You know, being locally owned, we are helping local rather than some of the ones that are coming from out of state. So we would like to develop this into a grow. That's the intention. It could do something else. We're not going to start, as soon as this gets approved, but we thought it would be very good for us to have the grow right next to the dispensary and then keep it for commercial in between the two properties and at the east side for the dispensary. So, just a quick summary of who we are, what we do, but think we're in very good standing with the city and would like to get approval for this if possible.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this? If not, do we have anyone on the... Oh, okay. I gathered as much.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hello, my name is Tina. I live on Lake Street. Tina, I live on Lake Street. I'm calling, yep, I know you're laughing at me. But I'm calling with my same question I always do about your sewers and your storm drains in Southtown neighborhood. When are you going to have this in the plan to fix it? You know, we shouldn't have to deal with this. And now all of a sudden you're staking out property lines and you're putting flags around trees, white flags, pink flags, orange flags. That's 60% wetlands and 40% floodplain on the little green space that's next to my home. It's our last little green space in our neighborhood. It's the last one. If you're going to build, why can't you build at the old DHS building? And as far as pot shops, we have enough pot shops in Kalamazoo. How many do you need? How much money is the city making off all these marijuana shops? They are everywhere. They're almost every 2-3 blocks from each other, all over the place. I mean, how many do we need? How much money are you guys making off it? Why can't you fix the problems in Kalamazoo? You keep taking away green spaces. We're in a climate change. We have issues with flooding. We get trapped in our homes. On Lake to Stockbridge is the green space that I am talking about. Nobody never wants to answer my question. XL Engineering was staking out trees and counting trees, but see, no one never tells us anything. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. No more callers. All right, thank you. Seeing no one else, we will close the public hearing. Are there any clarifying questions or questions for the applicant?
I have a technical question,
Yes.
maybe for Pete. Is there a special process for splitting parcels and then rezoning? That seems like a two-part recommendation.
There we go. Thank you. The rezoning and the land division are two separate processes. You know, in this case, they've actually done the survey work in advance and would like to split off that portion, so they've already, you know, they're ahead of the curve, so to speak. But they could have moved with the rezoning and not had all the survey work put together yet.
I meant mostly for our voting purposes.
Oh, for your voting, yeah, it's just on the rezoning of the specified area, that 1.6 acres
So,
is all that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is all that we're moving on the rezoning for.
so we don't need to say anything along the lines of pending the change of the land division in the motion or anything?
No, you don't, no. Sorry, I went full circle on that one.
I guess I would say, unless somebody on the commission felt strongly that we should not have a split zoned parcel and a land division, that they wanted the land division to be a condition of, I mean, you can't really condition rezoning, so never mind. We could, I'm not saying I do, but if you felt strongly that you didn't want that situation where you had a half and half, like we're going to deal with in the next case, then we might prolong this discussion. But if you're like, well, I think they're going to go forward with it, they just want to make sure the rezoning goes through, and then they'll split the property, because if the rezoning doesn't fail, then shoot, we've just split a property that we didn't really want to split. I think it's a cart and horse, chicken and egg situation, right? Do you split the property, and then what if the rezoning doesn't go through? Now you've got this parcel that, oh, crap, now what do I do with this? But then if you do the rezoning first, so.
So I guess what I'm wondering then is that there isn't a problem with having one parcel that part is zoned one way and part is zoned another, that's an allowable situation?
It's an allowable situation. So what happens is, well, Pete, you can answer the question. How you
Yeah,
handle
I was going
the
to say, I'll give you
creation of that.
the nuts and bolts on this. So say this rezoning moves forward to the city commission, ultimately gets approved, just totally theoretical. But then the next step would be development. And this, development of this site would go through site plan review, and one of the requirements would be to complete the land division. If they hadn't already done so, they would have to separate this development off, from the adjacent developed property where the marijuana retailer is. So that's where, that ends up being part of the site plan review process, to make sure that those little pieces get taken care of.
Because parcels that are split zoned, the zoning goes to the category that is the majority of the parcel.
Correct. So in this case, since this is like a third of the overall parcel, the predominant zoning would remain CC, which means they couldn't even add an industrial use until they split it.
Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Good.
And there was,
We got there.
Mr. Chair, there was one question by Commissioner Patelko about agriculture, and then Commissioner Vyas asked about a special use permit. Well, the marijuana ordinance that we adopted specifically says that the grow facilities have to be in a manufacturing zone district. So that's why, I was talking so specifically about M1 and not, and that the special use permit was not something we entertained. Well, that was the reason, I just forgot to expound upon it.
Any other clarifying questions or details at this time? Yes, go for it, for the applicant.
Yes, I had one for the applicant. After going through the processes, after going through the processes, and you said you and your son had bought this in 2018, and then here we are with 2022, what's the change as to why you want to change this land and possibly have it as a growth? What made the change there since you've been there for a while?
Probably exactly.
We just really want all the businesses together right there where they are. He has opened another business down on Miller Road, which is a process, a different license for cannabis. And he also has a small grow out in Paw Paw. And he really would not like to drive that far, if possible, and keep it all on the same campus. What's happening to us right now quickly is if we can't drive anything from Miller Road, which is a mile away from our dispensary. We have to get a licensed transport. We're spending about $75,000 a year to transport product from the process to the dispensary, just, edibles or marijuana or what have you. If we're on the same property, then depending upon what we do in the middle of it, we can transport on the same property to the dispensary or to the grow. So it would save considerable amount of money.
Gotcha. And then one more question for you. Now, if this were to pass and you guys go and we were to move forward, how would this work with safety? Because now you'd be added on new pieces. What safety could you add on to it? Because there are the businesses there that also, like stores and different markets and things of that nature, and then people that do reside on that side of town. How would you keep with safety to actually keep this space safe as well?
Safety for us?
For theft or anything like that, or for damages?
It's for security. We have at the dispensary right now, we've been robbed at the dispensary twice, and we've had to add security to work the off hours. We don't have it during work hours, but we have, nighttime security there. So they would be added to the area. Also, we are adding a parking lot, which was just approved just west of our dispensary for our employees, because we have to park out in the street right now. So we're trying to we got that approved. We're going to have lighting in there. Right now, it's not the best
Well,
with
I
the
can
red
add something
roof.
here too. One thing that I think will help by having the grow facility in approximate location to the retail facility is not only are they close together, they can concentrate the security effort. And
Definitely.
it will consolidate, and they can have a full security plan as to the whole, if they, ultimately go in that direction. And I'm sure that will be something that gets looked at during site plan approval as well, when they reach that point, when it gets to the development phase.
And with these
So that will make it actually safer, we would contend.
And with these facilities, whether you know it, that we have cameras in a 2,000 square foot dispensary, we have 32 cameras inside and outside the building. So, I mean, we've got full-time visuals of everything out there, and then the security as well.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Sure.
This is for the applicant also. You mentioned that you wanted the grow facility and your dispensary close together.
Yes.
Now, I'm just wondering, because is there an ordinance where, because I thought there was like, from the grow facility, it has to go to the, processing? Yes. Is that the processing or is that the laboratory?
Oh, it goes to a laboratory for testing, but it's just samples.
Okay.
There's a lot of different laws that go into this, but a grow can sell directly to a dispensary if they're just selling the flower. If they are going to use the flower and make concentrates or edibles, and I don't know that much about that, then it goes to this process that we have on Miller Road. That's where they process marijuana flower into concentrates, waxes, edibles, and those kinds of things. But a grow can sell directly to a dispensary. And what happens is when you have the harvest, you take your samples, the samples go to a laboratory, but the bulk of it stays at the grow and then is just sold directly to the dispensaries.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Very educational. That's good. Any other technical questions? Seeing none, we need a motion to kick off formal discussion. And remember, this is a motion to recommend approval to the City Commission of the rezoning from CC to M1 of 3650 Alvan Road. The west 1.6 acres of 3650 Alvan Road.
Mr. Chair, I will move that the Planning Commission recommends to the City Commission the rezoning of 3650 Alvin Road, the western portion, as noted, from CC to M1.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Burgess, second by Pitts. Great. Discussion time.
Well, I think when we mentioned putting the cart before the horse, and I think in a way, spending too much thinking about this specific use is not what we're here for. We're here for a zoning request. And if we look at the zoning request, it just so happens that the person who has an interest in putting a manufacturing portion on the western edge happens to be the same person who has the commercial on the eastern portion, as from our point of view, I believe it should be. I think when we look at the parcel in question, it's adjacent to other manufacturing areas. It's logical that that could be in manufacturing. It's logical that it could be in commercial. I think it's right on the edge of either. This certainly isn't any kind of spot zoning change. I think even though the future land use plan has it as commercial, I think a master plan is kind of and a future land use plan is a general thing. It's not a entirely specific document. There can be minor changes along the way, and this makes sense for that. I could even see the parcel to the north of this one also going from CC to manufacturing. Seems like the majority of the lands marked as CC are adjacent to either cork or sprinkle, and that makes sense for commercial. But the back ones, you could make a really good argument that could be manufacturing as well, so I think that makes sense. I think the big thing that works for me is the staff's finding number 4 about it is compatible with existing and proposed uses surrounding the subject land. So I think it just makes sense to me that it seems like a logical change that would work.
Thank you. Other discussion?
I think normally I would want to wait until after, or in the process of site plan review, but as Commissioner Burgess mentioned, this property is owned by the same firm on both sides, and they have they've got a plan in place and a vision that aligns well with the rest of the area. So it seems logical. Normally I would want to wait, but because of the circumstances of who owns the adjoining property, it seems to make sense to approve this right now.
Other thoughts? Well, I agree with Mr. Burgess. We need to focus on the zoning district, not the use, because this can be used for anything in M1, not really and it could be sold. So there's a lot of opportunities here that could happen. And I'll acknowledge, when I first looked at the packet, I was not really thinking that favorably here. I'm pretty committed to Imagine Kalamazoo and the future land use plan and the master plan, and I'm like, well, shoot, this is going to have to be really good to challenge that. But then as I drove around this, and I drove around the area a couple times, the character of the area is not very commercial. And as you guys drove around, hopefully you saw it the same way, or maybe saw it the same way. And so I agree with those comments that were made earlier. As you drive off Sprinkle and in Cork as well, you really, that character changes, both from access as well as just the uses. And there's successful light industrial uses back there that change that whole character. And so to expect a successful CC type use, especially as we've evolved the CC district in the new zoning, I think that's a little bit much for us to expect. Now in 2018, I was here and I approved that rezoning, but that type of macro level, general type zoning is not unique. That work is done a lot. It's done a lot when master plans come in and you're implementing those master plans. And that's why I asked if the neighborhood plan had been done, because that's, when you can take a more granular micro level analysis of specific areas. And that's what's happening here. We're taking a more granular micro level look and saying, well, maybe actually this should have been a little different. And so I'd hope when we go and look at Imagine Kalamazoo 2.0 or that next look when we do, which I've heard rumor of, we take a more granular look at this area, or when Millwood does their neighborhood plan, they take a look at this area, because I would guess that little block north of Alvan might shift in a little bit and not be as commercial as it's shown on that future land use plan. While I acknowledge it does not meet the future land use plan, I think it meets the spirit of the master plan and some of the other goals. So that's my thought. A lot of it, sorry. Any other comments?
Just one more thing that occurred to me, that if you look, the properties that are adjacent to the property in question, just to the south of it, is the 2 motels. And when I went to look at the property, I noticed that there's sort of a natural buffer between the two, but there is an elevation change that you can't see on the drawings.
Yeah.
That kind of could be useful to separate the two as well. That could be something to keep in mind as well.
I noticed that too, sort of a natural dividing line that when you just look at a parcel map, you don't notice, but when you're out there, you see that and you're like, oh, okay, this helps regardless of what's there. M1. All right. Any other? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, we'll start with Pitts,
Well,
Cha-
yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Patelko,
Yes.
Harrison, Burgess,
Yes.
Bias,
Yes.
Milliken.
Yes. All right, so this will go on to City Commission, and they'll take it from there. Thank you. Okay, next item, PC 2022.12, Odyssey Properties LLC requesting to rezone 435, 436, and 439 Westnedge Court from RM36, CN1, and CO to RM36. Mr. Eldridge.
Bear with me. All right. Apologize for the awkward pause. Okay, the second rezoning of the night is for the properties on Westnedge Court. And we have with us Jake Tardani from Odyssey Properties LLC this evening, the applicant. These three properties, unfortunately, it's not unique to the city of Kalamazoo. We have properties with overlapping zone districts, and this one happened to come up related to financing of the properties and whether they were conforming or non-conforming per the zoning. And that got us into looking at the fact that there was commercial neighborhood, commercial office, and the residential multi-dwelling zone district all overlapping. Here's a view looking at these three properties, and they are, there's 435 and 439 are the two that are on the south side of Westnedge Court, and then 436 is on the north side. All three of these residences were built between 1910 and 1918. And then there's two of them that are duplexes, the 435 and the 436. So the two towards the east here, towards the back of the court. And then just, looking at what surrounds this, as you notice, let me back up for a minute. So there's not a lot of parking with these properties. They take up most of the sites. So there is a commercial building that fronts on Westnedge with a parking lot behind it, and that is a location where some spaces have been leased over the years to address the tenant needs. So this is looking north. You've got the a multi-tenant commercial property with a yoga studio, the Yield Laundry, and hopefully some more uses will occupy that site to the north there. Looking back to the east, beyond where these homes are sitting, you can see a large house. That's part of Osborne Street behind, and that's all residential. And then looking south down Westnedge, that's all residential as well. And then looking back to the west, you can get a better view now of the flat roof of the commercial building. And then you can see, of course, there's another residential structure on the south side of Westnedge Court. So it is predominantly residential in nature there. Here is the zoning map. to be more specific on what we've got here, so 435 Westnedge Court has the overlap with the CN1 and the RM36, 436, which is in the, I'll just drop my cursor on it here. Right there. So 436, no, sorry, that's 436 is the one up top here. That one is RM15, CN1 overlap. The one below it, 435, has got the RM15 and CN1, and then it's 439 over to the west here that has the overlap that includes the commercial office zone district. So this is not an ideal situation, and because the predominant zoning is commercial, that's the governing development regulations, making the residential structures non-conforming. Looking at the existing land use, this just reinforces those pictures I showed, that there's residential both to the east, south, and a little bit to the west. And then you've got a little bit of commercial north and northwest of these three properties. And then the future land use map identifies this area as R2. It does include all three of the parcels here. And so you can see I guess we'll just call it a direct alignment, which is what we like to see, even though, as Commissioner Burgess pointed out, that the future land use map is, it's a guide, it's a tool, it's not an exact science. And in this case, these properties were identified on the future land use plan as residential, even though there was, overlapping commercial zone districts. And then as far as the outreach, again, we sent notices out to property owners and occupants on November 16th within 300 feet. Mr. Tardani did reach out to the Vine neighborhood. I actually heard back from the Vine neighborhood, and they didn't have any comment to make either way. They didn't see any issues with the rezoning. So that was good to hear. And so what I've just, again, the rationale that we put up on the screen is, simply a summary of the statements made when comparing the review criteria to the rezoning. So again, we have the three lots with the overlapping zone districts. Obviously the predominant commercial zoning is not desirable given it making the uses non-conforming. The alignment with the future land use map, and the alignment with the complete neighborhoods goal of the strategic vision. And the reason that is in there is, having protections for our housing units in this community is very important, and leaving these three structures that were built before any zoning ordinance was in existence, in a state of peril and with a non-conforming status, doesn't fit well with the mold of what we're trying to do right now with our need for housing stock. And this RM36 district, it is compatible with the surrounding, and I won't get into, the residential uses nearby again. And then, of course, lastly, the future investment. So, a lot of times when these properties change hands or they're being refinanced, this question comes up about, how, does it align with zoning? Is it a conforming structure? If it's damaged or destroyed, can it be rebuilt? And with the duplexes especially, the answer is no. If they're non-conforming, if they're damaged or destroyed, they can't be rebuilt. We do have certain protections that do cover a single-family home, so that particular property has a little more standing, even though it's non-conforming. And then the last item I wanted to point out is these are historic structures again, and they are also within the Vine Historic District. So, there's other reasons to try to preserve and protect these structures here. And with that being said, I'm open to any questions from the commissioners.
Thank you. Any technical questions for staff at this time? All right, excellent, thank you.
I'll introduce the applicant, Mr. Tardani.
Thank you for the introduction, Pete. Commissioners, it's a pleasure to meet you, and to be in front of you today is an honor. 18 years ago, to give you some background of who I am and what Odyssey Properties is, I arrived in Kalamazoo as a young undergrad at WMU. I'm sure many of you went there as well. And I had no idea what I was doing with my life, what I wanted to do. I ended up renting a property in the West Douglas neighborhood and had a great experience off campus. Subsequently, about 8 years later, I bought that same house from my landlord, and it was a really unique experience to buy the house that I grew up in, more or less, as a young adult. So when the seller of these three properties met me a year ago, he had the same experience with 439 Westnedge Court. He had lived in that as a tenant and then subsequently bought it from his landlord. It was a pretty unique experience for us to connect over. I will say, though, prior to 8th grade, I had moved 8 times. So we were pretty housing unstable growing up. And in 8th grade, we were living out of a fifth-wheel camper before we started 8th grade that year. So housing has become a pretty important thing to me, providing stability to others, making sure that children don't have to experience what I experienced growing up. As a result, over the last 10 and a half years, I've bought 37 City of Kalamazoo homes, many of them distressed, many of them off-market, through relationships and through connections that I have. We've restored and renovated 31 of those and have parted with 6 of them. So my business is focused on providing long-term stable housing, rental properties specifically. Although we do resell 1 or 2 per year, that's mostly to continue the operations with the rentals that we have. These specific properties, as Mr. Eldridge said, are unique in that they have 3 current zoning overlaps. In the process of working on a refinance for these properties, it did come about that in the event of a loss, 50% or greater, the duplexes would not be allowed to be rebuilt. I could go away with rebuilding a single-family dwelling. However, I believe most of us would agree that we have a shortage of available and viable housing in our city. And so this would solidify the ability to rebuild the duplexes as duplexes in the event of a loss. I hope to never experience that. And almost all of my houses are right in that 1900s to 1920s range, so it's a passion of mine. This business has grown from a small hobby to an enterprise that cares for people far greater than myself from across the globe, through refugee resettlement, through some of the foreign teachers that we have here in KPS, and the relationships that I've developed with the city through the home funding program, CDBG. It's just been an honor to be able to, again, to be in front of you and even seek this request out. So thank you for hearing out this request, and I'm open to any questions or concerns that you may have as well.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Oh, great. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, we will open the public hearing. Again, we'll have people come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and again, you can call in. Remember, if you're calling in, try to keep it limited to this item. We'll have an opportunity at the end of the agenda for non-agenda items to speak to. So with that, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this item? No? Okay. Do we have any call-ins?
No Collins.
No? All right. Mr. Eldridge, do you want to speak to this item? No. Okay. No, I'm kidding. All right, then we'll close the public hearing. Any technical questions at this time? All right, well then, we're ready for a motion to kick off discussion. So we'll need a motion to recommend to the City Commission approval of the rezoning of 435, 436, and 439 Westnedge Court from various zoning districts to the RM36 zoning district.
All right. Sorry. I recommend we approve 435, 436, and 439 Westnedge Court for rezoning to RM36. Yes.
Support.
All right, motion by Patelko, support by Vyas. Let's discuss.
I mean, there's not a lot to say other than it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, this is a nice, clean, conforming land use.
Yep.
So,
All right, that's easy. Other discussion? It's, the zoning map is a mess. And it's nice to try to take these opportunities to clean it up. And it's in conformance with the zoning ordinance, the standards in the zoning ordinance, and with the master plan. So I concur with the staff report and all counts there. Any other comments, discussion? All right then, we'll take a roll call vote. I'm going too fast.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with let's start with Commissioner Harrison. Burgess.
Yes.
Vyas.
Yes.
Pitts.
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Patelko.
yes.
Milliken.
Yes. Great. All right, thank you very much. So that will go to City Commission as well, making them work at the end of the year. All right, we'll move on to discussion items. PC 2022.13, the Capital Improvement Plan. So just as a reminder, while Director Baker comes up, the Capital Improvement Plan comes to the Planning Commission. This is a part of the Planning and Aid. It's a way to connect the capital improvements and sort of the large spending items of the city budget with the master plan. So there's not something, wildly askew from the vision of the community. So that's why it's here, and our role is to review it and recommend it to the city commission. Yep. So with that, look forward to hearing about it.
All right. Well, good evening, Planning Commissioners, Chair. Thank you very much for having me up here tonight. It's an opportunity to present this capital plan to everybody. My name is James Baker. I'm the Public Services Director and City Engineer for the City of Kalamazoo. So as we kind of get into the presentation tonight to present to you the 2023 Capital Improvement Plan, I did want to take just a moment to kind of highlight the process and the work that goes into creating this capital improvement plan, and recognize that this is a lot of creative work by many individual departments. So that's not something that just Public Services does. There's essentially every department in the city is participating in this. Those departments are also supported through, quite often, their own boards and commissions that help support this work and to help them plan and identify future projects. That can include things such as the Complete Streets Committee, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the Utility Policy Committee for water projects, and also things such as Imagine Kalamazoo. There's just a tremendous amount of work that goes into creating these plans. I also want to recognize the Management Services team and our CFO, Mr. Steve Vicenci, and our budget manager, Ms. Stephanie Radin, who helps to actually pull the numbers and build the spreadsheets and put all this stuff together. This capital improvement plan, the packets that went, that you folks received, that is part of the overall City of Kalamazoo budget that was transmitted to city commissioners on December 1st. So that's something that city commissioners are receiving as well. So getting into it and just kind of giving you some overview, the capital improvement plans that you have that are part of that budget process or budget packet are broken out by fund. So we have general fund, major streets, local streets, water, and wastewater. And then I'm just going to give you some highlights of the typical things that you would see within these funds. So for general fund, that would include our Parks and Rec Department, so any parks improvements, That includes all city facilities, things like City Hall, Mayor's Riverfront Park, that sort of thing, improvements to that, farmers market. Also includes our public safety department, heavy equipment, things of that nature. When you see heavy equipment in public safety, that means like fire trucks. That's really what that means, would be big fire apparatus, things like that. We also purchase dump trucks and excavators and things like that for public services. We purchase that out of fleet, which is part of general fund as well. Major and local streets. There's a lot of projects there. We're seeking to improve Pacer ratings on streets. We also are looking to improve safety and operating conditions overall. That's one of the things that our Complete Streets committee has been really helpful with and really successful with. When we look at street projects, we're looking through the lens of not just motor vehicles, but we're also looking through the lens of safety for all modes of users, including pedestrians and bicyclists as well. The street funds, major and local streets, those are limited by Act 51. So essentially what Act 51 is, that's a reference to how that fund receives its dollars. Act 51 is your gas taxes at work. So that's, you pay at the pump, part of what you pay at the pump comes back to City Kalamazoo for roads. And that's for our major and local streets fund, 100% of the project, 100% of the funding within our major and local streets is funded through gas tax. So the city general fund does not put anything into major and local streets. Those are special revenue funds. And then water and wastewater funds, again, continued investment in overall infrastructure. We're looking to maintain regulatory compliance with both the drinking water system and a wastewater treatment plant. And, we're seeking to improve water quality as well. Given a snapshot of investment, and we're just some bar charts of comparison of, where we're at. We're a little over or just under $7 million in general fund, about $17 million in major streets, $4.5 million in local streets. That local street investment is pretty exaggerated in this year. Historically, we usually spend around $1 to $2 million annually in local streets. And we'll get into some big impactful projects that are impacting that. About $60 million in drinking water and about $25 million in wastewater. So getting into what some specific projects are within general fund, we've got some planning for farmers market event building. So that's a project that if you see in your detail line items, that spans over the course of 3 years. So it's a pretty substantial project. We also have a series of park improvements, starting with Verberg Park, Millen Park, and Emerald Park. They're going to carry out over the next few years. There's continued investment in overall IT equipment and kind of our, IT infrastructure, if you will. Heavy equipment in fleet, things like dump trucks, excavators, and then in public safety, the heavy equipment line item is fire apparatus. So that would replace some of the aging fleet of fire trucks. Getting into some streets projects specifically, some really big ones, some big highlights would be Kalamazoo Ave and Michigan Ave. We've already awarded that design on Kalamazoo Ave, so we're in that process and we're going to continue that process. We're going to start the Michigan Ave design in 2023. To talk just a little bit about those projects, if you go into the line item details, you'll see some different funding sources. So we've got some raised grant dollars identified, as well as some dollars that are coming back to us from our local agency, planning agency, which is CATS, Kalamazoo Area Transportation Study, which is our local planning agency for our federal streets. So those are, really impactful projects that we're going to carry out for the next few years. Westonage and Whites Road, those are going to be big total reconstruction projects that are going to happen this summer. Westonage is going to be completely reconstructed from Cork, Whites Road area, north to Lovell Street. So that's going to be full depth pavement replacement. That's going to be coordinated water main replacement. So all the water main's going to come out, all brand new water main's going to go in. And then in terms of cross section, that roadway is going to carry the same cross section that it does right now, with one exception that we're still experimenting and piloting bike lanes from the Maple Street area than north. So south of Maple Street, the roadway will look the same way it does now. And then from Maple Street north, there's still going to be some enhancements for the parking lane and bike lane that you see in place there. White's Road is going to be, again, a total reconstruction project from Oakland Drive to Westnedge. Again, water main, all brand new water main. On the Westnedge side, jumping around here a little bit, all the lead services have already been removed from the Westnedge project as well, so all the water infrastructure is getting renewed. White's Road will be a 4 to 3 lane conversion with 1 lane dedicated each direction, so you have 1 eastbound lane, 1 westbound lane, a center turn lane, and then bike lanes both sides. Jumping into some 2 local street projects, the Academy Street culvert replacement. That's a pretty substantial cost-wise project. So right now, Academy Street, as you're kind of heading into K College, has experienced a failure of that culvert. That culvert carries roadway users over the the Arcadia Creek that lies under there. So we've got a pretty substantial project to completely remove that structure that's there, realign the creek to allow for us to build the new structure while the old one's there, tear that out, and then move forward. So that's going to be a pretty involved project. And then Inkster Street Bridge is a pretty involved project as well. So some of these projects, certainly have a life of their own in kind of the planning respect and public meeting and presentation. So I'm not going to go into too many details on it. I would do the projects a major disservice. I would just refer folks to some of the project planning pages in, I imagine, Kalamazoo as a reference to kind of learn more about some of these street projects. Ransom Street, this is a big coordinated project, complete reconstruction and a complete redesign of the corridor. This is in cooperation with the Northside Cultural Business District and the Northside Association for Community Development. We're going to completely reconstruct Ransom from Wallbridge, then west all the way to Westnedge. Within that street cross-section, our kind of driving force behind this project is to install a very large diameter, 42-inch diameter sewer interceptor. There currently is an undersized 24-inch sewer interceptor that extends and carries flows from Westnedge, then east towards additional interceptors. When we did the roundabout, the Gull Harrison North roundabout there, we installed new interceptor 42-inch diameter from there over towards the park to carry future flow. So we're now ready to kind of connect those, if you will, and support additional growth in and around Kalamazoo. Due to the large scale of that project, that's a very deep pipe. It's a very large diameter pipe. So that's going to really involve us digging up the entire roadway. There's also going to be all new water mains. So all the water mains going to come out, all brand new water mains going in. And that project will also have some streetscape enhancements that we're coordinating with Northside Cultural Business District. And then that corridor will be completely relit. So all new lighting as well. Patterson Street Bridge, that's going to be reconstructed over Kalamazoo River. That's going to be an impactful project for drivers because that's going to be a total closure. So folks right now that use Patterson to kind of connect between north side and east side, that roadway is going to be completely closed and starting in February. So that's going to be a project that's coming up pretty soon here. So we're going to have some upcoming meetings that are going to be talking about that and talking about how traffic and detours are going to function in that area. There's a lot of projects on local major streets that I'm not talking about. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm just, we've got the list in front of you. We can, if any of the commissioners have a question on any specific item, we can go back to it. But for the sake of, moving along, I wanted to hit some highlights and keep us, kind of rolling here. The wastewater treatment plant is in the process right now. There's a pretty large project to replace the tertiary treatment process. That's about halfway done. We plan to go live and put that process online in July to August of 2023. We've got ongoing motor control center upgrades all throughout the treatment plant. We just completed a major centrifuge project at the treatment plant that's been pretty successful. I'm referencing the ransom project here as well. A lot of times these multidisciplinary projects where we do total reconstructs, we're combining water dollars with wastewater dollars with street dollars to have a more impactful project that we can deliver to the citizens. We also are going to do a project this year on John Street, on that section between Lake and Crosstown. There's a trunk line sewer, about a 15-inch diameter sewer that we're going to be replacing in that area, and then we're going to be increasing the size of the siphon as we cross under Axtell Creek. So that's going to be a project that kicks off this year. We also have ongoing about $1 million a year that we invest in what we call trenchless rehab within the sewer system. So that's where we don't need to dig the whole road up. We install what's called like a cast-in-place pipe liner, and then we also rebuild the manholes by a process called monoform, where we don't need to dig up the roadway. We put form liners inside a manhole, and then we pour concrete kind of around that annulus space. We're essentially pouring a new manhole inside a manhole. And then that is a process that we can use to kind of extend the service life to get another 40 to 50 years out of those structures. We've also been doing a number of odor control improvements in the treatment plant. In July of 2021, we went operational with 4 new carbon scrubber units. We spent about $4.25 million in carbon scrubbing units that scrub odors at point source locations within the treatment plant. We're continuing that work. We've got a lot of work focused on that. Anybody that wants more information, we would encourage you to visit the website for the Odor Task Force website on the part of the city's suite of websites that's got some real-time monitoring and tracking of odors through EnviroSuite software. You can report an odor, observe an odor on that website as well. And it also talks about all the work that we've done. One of the things that we're going to continue to do this year is reroute the Graphic Packaging's wastewater discharge effluent line from their clarifier to us. That process right now is utilizing a former force main back when we had 6 or more paper plants all in service here in Kalamazoo. So that pipe is a bit oversized for their use. It's also creates some rather turbulent flow, and it's got a lot of velocity challenges. So it's kind of creating or aerosolizing that discharge to us. So we've got a new design where we're going to right size that pipe diameter. We're going to run a new 24-inch line from their clarifier direct to the treatment plant, and then that line is going to be a sealed line. So it's going to have manholes, but if you open the manhole, the pipe's still sealed under it. So it's going to be a completely sealed line from us all the way back to them. And then so that's something that's going to be coming forward to the City Commission as we look to award that work. On the drinking water side, we continue that really rapid pace progress on lead service line replacement. We've gone through the east side neighborhood. We've completed our first phase of north side neighborhood. We did over 400 service lines in north side neighborhood. We're going to start north side number 2. This year was going to finish up north side proper, the City of Kalamazoo defined neighborhood, and then we're also going to extend west into other Kalamazoo neighborhoods such as Fairmont, West Douglas, and then we're also going to go from there to the townships and north. So this summer and into next year, we're going to complete essentially our entire what we call North Kalamazoo area that would roughly be defined from Kalamazoo Ave and West Main, then all the way north to Mazel, all the way west to Nichols Road, and all the way east to the Kalamazoo River. So if you go to, we've got a website, there's a link here. We can try maybe see if the link works for Brave. See where it takes us. Cross your fingers. It's thinking. I'm seeing it on my end, so it is. So my screen has. Interesting. So my screen changed, but.
You can minimize the PowerPoint?
That's a good question. I can do is I can just stop that. There we go. All right, we have success. So this is a active link that helps citizens see where we're at with the lead replacement program. All the little dots are areas that we've replaced. Those are, point addresses where we've done replacements. The bar charts show you how many replacements we've completed per year. And then the polygons represent kind of areas where we're at right now. So the polygons are kind of showing that we're actively working in east side and north side. And then we're going to continue into a broader area of north side into, starting this year and into next year. So with the project scope that we have in place for next year, when we complete that project, we should at that point have completed over 50% of all the lead service lines within the Kalamazoo water utility, which includes City Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo Township as well. Within your packets, your line items, if you flip to water, there's a ton of projects for water, but there's a separate box for lead services. If you look there, you can see where we're going by year. So once we're done with north side, we're going to go to Edison. And then once we're done with Edison, we're going to hit Vine, Stewart, and some of downtown. And once we're done with that, we're going to start to go into Millwood and then into the hills. So we've been working at this essentially from kind of starting at the north and east and just kind of working across the city to the west and then moving down to the south and then working back towards the west and out. So we're taking a very methodical approach to this, going into large neighborhood areas at a time. And then through this program, regardless of where our construction is at the moment, anytime if we go to a house and we test that house and that result is above the action level, we will immediately prioritize that family for lead service line replacement. So this summer, we're going to be in Northside. If we test a family in Vine and they're over the action level, we'll prioritize them and replace that. And the reason we do that is we want to be successful and be able to be autonomous and responsive to the needs of the citizens. And we do that by these large project areas. We bid those out to contractors, and then we have dollars and resources in place for city crews. So city crews are able to be nimble and respond to those specific addresses while we're also doing the big areas as well. So I'm going back to the slides now, and I'm just going to fast forward, get us to where we were at. And just kind of talk through the additional programs within the Drinking Water Fund. We've got pretty big plans to replace station number 5. That's over on the east side of the city. If you're familiar with where Wallace and East Michigan's at, you go just a little further to the east, you pass Skippers, and then you kind of hit where our leaf compost site is. Kind of tucked in that corner is Station 5. So Station 5 is going to be completely rebuilt, all new footprint. It's going to have full-scale iron removal. It's also going to have full-scale PFAS and manganese removal. So that station is going to be about a 2-year build-out for us to build all that. It's quite an involved project. And when that's complete, that station will have the ability to base load some flows within that district and push out, into the intermediate district and then also up into the what we call the east side pressure district. All of our stations are undergoing a process where we're going to be implementing optimized corrosion control. So right now we feed phosphates, we have corrosion control in place, but there's a possibility that we can do it better with more accuracy and more precision and get a better product to better protect the pipes. So we're in the study phase of that right now, where we've done solubility testing to identify the best chemical solution to prevent corrosion of the pipes. We've then moved to what we call a pipe rack scale model testing to where we're in our stations. We've got racks of pipe set up and we're flowing water through that and testing that with, different chemical parameters or different phosphate blends. The results of that test will then give us our final determination of what blend and feed rate we're going to then use in the system. So as soon as we know that, and we're getting pretty close, that's then going to inform all the improvements that we do at all the stations. So in terms of pump sizing and liquid storage capacity, each one of the stations for the liquid blended phosphate, we kind of need to know where we're going to be with the parameters, and then we're going to sit off and do that work. So a lot of station improvements, facility improvements, coordinated water main replacement, large-scale lead service line replacement, and overall a goal to improve both public health and water quality for Kalamazoo citizens. So that's about it. That's my slideshow. I'm going to end it. And I'm available for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation and all the detail there. That's good. Any questions or comments for Director Baker? Yes.
Hello, Director Baker. I did have one of my questions. When it came to the Patterson Bridge, because I know that's where we have work on the Kalamazoo River, is that going to affect the job that's already going on the river when you guys work on that bridge?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, EPA is in the river working on PCB removals. So we're coordinating with them to make sure when we go in to do the bridge repairs, which will be bridge deck repairs, that we're not in their way and they're not in our way. So that is being coordinated at the moment. So we are aware of that, and we're going to work to coordinate those activities.
Gotcha. And then my other question, when it comes to lead pipes, from my understanding, the pipes that are being replaced are only city pipes, but they're not actual residential pipes. So if a resident were to replace their own that go directly into their home, that's something totally separate than what you guys are actually doing, if I understand that correctly.
So I think there could be some clarification that better help. So the city, we replace the line from the water main all the way to inside the home. So we get it all the way inside the home to where the water meter is. So from, the pipe that's in your front yard or side yard or whatever, we replace that, and we replace the line going out to the road. But the lines that could be in your house that, go from your basement to the second floor, or, the pipes that run horizontally in your basement, no, we are not replacing those. So those would be the responsibility of the homeowner or property owner.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? No? What's that? Okay. No. Nothing from me either. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
No one's here from the public, so we won't. It's not a public hearing, but I would, anyways. But I would remind brothers, we did have the caller earlier that I think spoke to some of these items. I will entertain a motion to recommend to the City Commission approval of the 2023 Capital Improvement Plan.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Chambers. All right. Is there discussion?
I appreciate all the work that the city's putting in to kind of update and progress the city. And so its plans of the image Kalamazoo and just the benefits of the community, especially the capital improvement campaigns, and also the community input, as some of the projects have been communicated to our neighbors and they are well aware of some of this existence. So just appreciate the communication and the cooperation and participation by both the residents and the city in this process.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other discussion? And as I mentioned earlier, the key here is to just see, is this aligning with Imagine Kalamazoo? I see no point where this is not aligning with Imagine Kalamazoo. It's clearly in line there, and I do agree. I appreciate all the collaboration amongst the staff and all the hard work that has gone into this, and I appreciate that we live in a city that's willing to invest in its infrastructure and not just sit back and accept its fate as an aging urban city. So thank you for that, and thank you for the good work. Anything else? All right. Well, then we'll take a. Do we need a roll call, or can we just do a voice vote?
We'll do a roll call,
All
just,
right.
just for the record.
Very good.
All right, we'll start with Commissioner Burgess,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Patelko,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
and Bias,
Yes.
and Milliken.
You confused yourself on that one. Yes. You tried to mix it up. Thank you again. City planner report.
Okay, and for the benefit of the public, I am putting up the schedule of meetings for 2023. I emailed that out to everyone. And just to clarify, we are going to cancel the first meeting of the year for January 5th. We don't have any pending applications at this point. If anything critical comes up, obviously, we have the option to schedule a special meeting if we could fit that in, but I don't see that happening either. We do always look at the public school schedule, and that is, so we made sure we didn't want to conflict with that break over the Christmas and New Year's, as well as looking at the spring break, which is March 24th to April 2nd, so we're clear of that as well. And as far as projects for 2023, a lot of them Christina had provided updates on, and so she'll talk more about those in February, but we had the sign ordinance amendments, got the screening and landscaping sections that we have amendments put together for, and these are not going to all come forward exactly the same time. And then there is the initiative to do some rezoning along the commercial corridors to better align the zoning with the existing land use. Some of the specific areas like Portage Street, Drake Road, West Main, where we just have some real patchwork zoning that doesn't align well with the development pattern that's there and our desires for new development. So I wanted to mention those. As far as my personal situation, I am assuming a new role. I'm staying with the city of Kalamazoo, but as of this past Monday, I became the zoning administrator in the CPED department, and the city will be hiring a new assistant city planner. So my focus will be more on a lot of what I was already doing day to day, working with the Zoning Board of Appeals, managing the permits, zoning enforcement, license reviews. It's just, we've done a lot of reorganization in the department. And of course, when you see Christine, you can congratulate her because she is now the city planner / deputy director of CPED. So she got a promotion. But yeah, so we've done a lot of reshuffling to try to keep up with, the pace of development and the changes that are occurring in the city. So I just wanted to let you know that. So I don't think you will probably see me again, and maybe I'll be presenting some of the ordinance changes, but I won't be here as frequently anymore. And let's see, so last on our list was site plan review spreadsheet. Normally the commissioners don't have any questions related to that. I just wanted to reiterate once again that because that's delegated by the planning commissioners to the city staff every year, If you're ever interested in sitting in on one of those site plan review meetings, feel free to let us know and we'll get you lined up. Some of them are Zoom. In fact, most of them are still Zoom, so that makes it very for you to sit in on one of those. But other than that, that's the end of the city planner report, and I wish everybody a happy holiday.
Congrats to you on your new position.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats, and thank you for your help managing us and getting us through. Appreciate it. Public comments. There's nobody here, but is there anyone who has called in? Yes, there is.
Hello, caller. You please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
Okay, hello. Sorry, I called at the wrong time. This is Tina McClinton. I live on Lake Street. I had called about the flooding and the storm sewer issues and the storm drain. Hello. The storm sewer issues in Kalamazoo. The storm drains flood our whole neighborhood out, and the storm sewers flood the streets. You're putting flags up in our woods, and no one's telling us anything. We shouldn't have to worry about that. So this little green space is our last little green space in our neighborhood. The last one we have. And we really need it to survive. We are trapped for days with this flood water. But only reason why we know somebody's surveying the land is because we've caught the person in the woods surveying the land. We have a lot of wildlife there. And if you take that green space away, we will be underwater just like Upjohn Park. So please, leave the green space alone. It's only 4.5 acres. It's 60% wetlands. It's 40% floodplain. We enjoy it. It's our last piece of country in our neighborhood, which is on Lake to Stockbridge. If you're going to build, would you please just build at the old DHS building that you own? It's flat land property. You don't have to destroy a whole bunch of trees. You know, yes, the little woods I live that next to me, it does need to get the dead trees taken away and stuff. But I can't pick them up and pull them away. Otherwise, I would have had them out of there. But we really need this place to survive. You know, it's terrible when you have to work 2 jobs just to put in a new furnace every 4 years, a new water heater every 4 years. Pay somebody $1,200 to clean your basement out once a year, every year. You know, I'm not rich. I'm a lunch lady and I work at a grocery store. I mean, come on. Why should I have to deal with this all the time? Stop taking our green spaces away, please. We need them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Is that the only caller?
It appears so. No more.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I don't believe City Commissioner is here. So, Planning Commissioner comments. Any Planning Commissioner comments? Oh, yes.
Happy upcoming holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. All right. All right. I have a couple. Sorry. One suggestion I would make, when we were doing with the rezonings, I really struggled finding information on the zoning districts. And I think it's a function of this sort of parallel state that we're in with, you know, we've got Appendix A, and we got Chapter 50, and we got some over here and some over there. So I may be asking a lot here, and in some cases it may not be necessary, but like for the Westnedge Court one, it may not have been necessary to provide as much information as the Alvin Road one. But if in the packet, just the use table or the table of uses or just the summary sheet of these are the standards for the CC and these are the standards for the M1, or this is the use table that applies, that includes the uses in M1, and this is the use table that shows what's in the CC, because I realize maybe I'm alone here, but it took me longer than it should have to find that information for those. And if it, I don't want to sound silly here, but if it took me that long, it probably took others, or maybe others didn't even look for it, and that seems like very pertinent information to our reviews. So that's a suggestion to help with the reviews there.
Okay, so the use table showing allowed land uses by zone district, that more so than the development standards table.
I'm leaving it generic, and
Okay,
as staff, you kind of know what's going to be pertinent. You know, for the Alvan one, the development standards weren't really super pertinent. It was a big parcel. It was really all about the uses, right? With the Westnedge one, it was more about the development standards, right? Are we creating a non-conforming lot? Are we creating that type of situation by the lot size, by the setbacks, that sort of thing? That was where my head was going. Now I'm getting pretty granular and nerdy in thinking like that, but that's where my head was going and what I was looking for. But that's where I don't want to get specific and tell you, prescribe exactly what to provide, but I think as you're doing these reviews, you can probably figure out, okay, this is going to be helpful information. The packet doesn't need to be 200 pages thick, but, just a little bit of information from the zoning ordinance. This is pertinent detail from CC, this is pertinent detail from M1, this is pertinent detail about RM36, copy those pages from the ordinance or whatever and slide it in. I think that would be really helpful, at least until we get to a point where we have the zoning ordinance that's finished, that we can all know, click on this link and it's live, or here's the printed book that we all have and we can all read from it. Until then, it's really hard, because I went to the old one, the Appendix A, and it's out of date because it doesn't have anything about marijuana in it. And it's like, well, I know marijuana is allowed in the M1, but it's not here online. So this isn't good. And the Chapter 50 is good, but it doesn't have anything on M1. So what am I looking at here? So that's where I was kind of stuck, and I just threw my hands up and said, well, I give up. And so I kind of felt a little blind without really having any zoning ordinance information to go on. So it didn't really factor into my decision-making at all, but it would have been helpful, I think. So just a thought.
yep, we can do that. And I understand, it is confusing.
Yeah.
Because there is M1 information for marijuana uses in Chapter 50, and then the rest of the M1.
Oh, is that where it is?
Yeah, but the land use table is still in Appendix A that
Yeah.
has M1 and all the allowed land uses.
Okay.
So.
And that's where I was looking. I was looking at the land use table. I was like, where is it? Okay. Well, thus the confusion. So that's my request. Other than that, that's all I have. Congratulations on the election. Went smoothly. Happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy this year-end push, and hopefully everybody gets a chance to enjoy some time to relax and reflect and welcome the new year in style. So, anything else? All right, with that, we're adjourned, and I'm in time to pick up my son. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Pete, for the snacks. Did you provide these?
I did.
Thank you.